What if I told you that the pain you carry isn't just yours, that your anxiety, your silence, your grief may not have been born in you, but carried through you? That when you choose to awaken, to heal, to remember who you truly are, you are not just saving yourself, you are healing those who came before. Imagine this, 1,000 generations watching from beyond the veil, holding their breath, not because they expect perfection, but because they see you standing at the threshold they could never cross. What if your healing is their liberation? And what if your awakening is not the end, but the beginning of a much older story, finally coming home? This is not just your journey, it is a lineage unraveling, a sacred echo finding its voice again, through you. You didn't come here to suffer, you came here to end the echo, you came here to remember for them. We are born into families, but we inherit much more than names, skin, or stories. We inherit memories we don't remember, wounds we never lived, beliefs shaped by centuries of survival, traumas coded into silence. And though our lives may feel unique, many of our struggles are not personal, they're ancestral. The weight of unspoken grief, suppressed rage, forgotten prayers, it all lives in the body, passed down, carried forward, waiting, not to haunt, but to heal. And something miraculous happens the moment one soul in a bloodline begins to awaken. The moment one heart chooses to face the pain rather than numb it, forgive rather than repeat it, speak rather than shrink. A ripple moves backward, light touches places that once only knew shadow, and the ancestors, long buried in silence, begin to rise. Not as ghosts, but as witnesses to your courage. This video is not just about you, it is about your grandmother's silence, your father's shame, your lineage's longing for rest. It is about becoming the one who says, "It ends with me, it heals with me, it begins again, through me." Welcome, brave soul. You were born to remember. Part 1. You are the turning point of a lineage. You are not just a person born into a time and place, you are the living edge of an ancient story. A story that stretches back through generations, etched not only in memory but in marrow, in muscle, in the subtle vibrations of your soul. You may think your life began with your first breath, but the truth is more mysterious, more intricate, more sacred. Your life is the unfolding of a thread that began long before you had a name. And in this moment, in this incarnation, you are the turning point. You are where the story can change. Most people go through life unaware of this truth. They walk through the world thinking their pain is personal, their anxiety is unique, their patterns are isolated. But you, if you're listening to this, if something in these words stirs you, then you are different. You are the one in the bloodline who begins to awaken. Not because you are more special or more worthy, but because the time is now. Because the weight that has been passed down from generation to generation has finally reached a place where it can rest. And that place is you. You are the first in your family to stop running. The first to ask, where does this pain really come from? The first to wonder why love feels unsafe, why silence feels familiar, why self-sabotage feels strangely comforting. These are not random habits, these are not your flaws. They are echoes of survival strategies shaped by wars, migrations, poverty, oppression, silence, and secrets. Echoes that live not just in stories, but in nervous systems, in muscle memory, in instinct. You are not starting from zero, you are starting from lineage. To be the turning point means to be the one who turns toward the pain instead of away from it. To be the one who says, this ends here, not in anger but in love, not in blame but in awareness, not to punish those who came before, but to set them free. Because they too were turning points. They did the best they could with what they had. They carried forward what they were given, sometimes with grace, sometimes with violence, sometimes in silence. But they passed the flame, and now you hold it. What will you do with it? To awaken in a lineage is not always gentle. It often begins with a deep discomfort, an inexplicable sadness, a heaviness that seems to come from nowhere, or the feeling of being different, of not quite belonging, of being more sensitive than the world allows. These are not flaws, they are clues. Signs that you are carrying more than your own lifetime, and that your soul came here to remember what others were forced to forget. You see, when trauma is not healed, it repeats. When stories are not told, they fester. When grief is not honored, it seeps into the bones of the next generation. But when one person becomes conscious, truly conscious, the chain begins to dissolve. And not just forward, but backward. Because time, as the soul experiences it, is not linear. Healing now sends ripples through then. Your breath, when intentional, can release the breath that was held by your great-grandmother in fear. Your tears, when allowed to fall, can cleanse the eyes of a grandfather who was never allowed to cry. Your truth, when finally spoken, can liberate the silence of generations. You are not alone in this work. Though you may feel isolated at times, though your family may not understand you, though society may label your depth as too much, you are not alone. You are surrounded by ancestors who whisper through dreams, through synchronicities, through the quiet sense that you are being held by something greater. You are their hope. Not because you are perfect, but because you are present. Presence is the medicine. When you sit with your sadness instead of pushing it away, when you feel your anger without unleashing it, when you breathe through your fear instead of numbing it, something miraculous happens. The pattern loses its grip. The cycle begins to unravel. You start to see not just what you inherited, but what you have the power to choose. This is spiritual alchemy. Not in theory, but in your body, in your choices, in your lineage. Being the turning point doesn't mean you need to fix everything. It doesn't mean carrying the burdens of your ancestors. It means allowing them to rest. It means saying, with love, I will not carry what was never mine, but I will honor what you carried. I will honor what you endured, and I will live in a way that brings peace to your memory. That is the offering. That is the healing. Sometimes healing looks like breaking cycles. Sometimes it looks like setting boundaries your parents never could. Sometimes it looks like speaking truths that have been avoided for generations. Sometimes it's quiet, choosing rest instead of hustle, choosing love that feels safe, choosing to raise your children with gentleness instead of fear. All of these are sacred revolutions. All of them are echoes of awakening. And what if, just what if your awakening was written before you were born? What if the soul of your great-grandmother whispered into your unborn spirit, "Please go further than I could. Please feel what I was too afraid to feel. Please speak what I was forced to silence. Please love in the way I never got to. Not because I failed, but because you are the future, because you are my continuation. You are not a mistake. You are not alone. You are the culmination of every prayer, every wound, every breath that came before you. And now in this lifetime you get to choose. Will you awaken? Will you become the medicine? Will you become the bridge between what was and what could be? The answer does not need to be loud. It begins with a whisper, a choice, a breath, a moment of stillness in which you feel the magnitude of your own presence, in which you realize you are the turning point, and everything changes from here. Part 2. Ancestral trauma lives in the body. Before you ever spoke a word, before you even knew your name, your body was already speaking. It carried memories that didn't begin with you. It held stories without language, tremors without incident, fears without origin, longing without object. You may think trauma begins in the mind, but the body is where it sleeps, quietly, persistently. Sometimes screaming through chronic pain, sometimes whispering through anxiety that doesn't make sense. And often it isn't even yours. It is the unprocessed residue of those who came before you, stored not in diaries but in DNA, in breath, in posture, in how your heart responds to love, in how your gut reacts to danger, in how you flinch, freeze, retreat, or fight when no one has touched you at all. This is ancestral trauma, and it lives in the body. Science now confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. Memory is not confined to the mind, it lives in cells. Epigenetics tells us that trauma can alter the expression of genes for multiple generations. But long before science gave it a name, indigenous peoples, mystics, and healers spoke of blood memory, soul echoes, karmic imprints. They knew that the body is not just yours, it is a library. And every gesture of healing you offer, it is not just for you. It is a reading of an old page, a rewriting of a chapter written in silence. Perhaps your jaw clenches when someone raises their voice, even though you've never been harmed. Perhaps your back tightens when you rest, as if relaxation is unsafe. Perhaps love feels dangerous, or perhaps success brings guilt. These are not quirks, these are patterns. They were installed for protection long ago, by ancestors who endured war, loss, famine, abandonment, who held their breath so their children could survive, who swallowed their truth to avoid punishment, who worked themselves into the ground because resting was a risk. And now those echoes vibrate in your nervous system. Not to punish you, but to be felt. Not to limit you, but to be released. When you feel your pain as if it doesn't belong to you, it's because it doesn't. Not entirely. It belongs to a line, a web, a network of survival. And in that network, you are the first to become aware, to ask why instead of repeating, to pause instead of react, to breathe instead of brace. This is the sacred invitation of your body to become the space where the pain ends, where the tension is no longer inherited but dissolved, where what was suppressed is welcomed into awareness and alchemized. But this work is not glamorous. It is not always loud. Often it looks like crying over something you don't understand, shaking in the night without a reason, feeling rage rise in your chest and not knowing where it came from. These are not failures, they are releases, waves moving through, echoes of what has been waiting for you to stop running, to listen, to feel. And yet modern culture teaches us to override the body, to numb it, to medicate it, to ignore its cries and worship the mind. But the body keeps the score. It always has. And what it cannot express, it suppresses. What it cannot suppress, it turns into dysfunction, into illness, into misalignment. Not because it is weak, but because it is wise. It is asking for your attention, not your control, your presence. To do ancestral healing is to begin a conversation with the body that was never allowed to happen. To sit with your tension and ask, what are you protecting me from? To feel the grief and whisper, whose sadness is this, really? To notice the flinch and say, you're safe now, I'm listening. This is sacred work, and it requires slowness, gentleness, reverence. The body does not respond to force, it responds to consistency. It responds to safety. It responds to the energy of, you no longer have to hold this alone. And as you show up day after day, moment after moment, the body begins to trust. It begins to unravel. And as it unravels, so do the generations within it. The mother who never cried, the father who held his fear in his fists, the grandmother who served everyone but herself, the great-grandfather who died with his truth locked in his chest. They begin to exhale through you. You may not know their names, you may not know their stories, but their energy lives in your tissues, their longings hum in your bones. And when you offer them space through movement, through tears, through stillness, through breath, you become the vessel of their healing. You become the resting place of their unrest. This is why healing can feel overwhelming, because you are not just feeling for you, you are feeling for the ones who couldn't. You are dreaming for the ones who didn't have the chance. You are resting for those who worked themselves to death. You are speaking for the ones who were silenced. And your nervous system, though tender, is strong enough to hold it. That is why you were chosen. That is why you came. So the next time your body tightens without a cause, the next time emotion surges without a story, pause, listen, breathe. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, I am here. It is safe to feel. It is safe to release. And in that moment, something ancient begins to loosen. Not because you fixed it, but because you faced it. Because you gave it the one thing it was always waiting for, your presence. You are not broken. You are the first to be aware. You are not weak. You are the first to stop running. You are not alone. You are the culmination of everything that came before you, finally becoming whole. Part 3. Memory is cellular, not just mental. We tend to think of memory as a function of the brain, neatly stored in compartments, tied to a timeline, accessed through thought. We imagine memories as mental files we can open, examine, perhaps even delete. But there's a deeper truth, one that cannot be explained by intellect alone. Memory lives not just in the mind, but in the body, in the skin, in the fascia, in the blood. You're not just a conscious mind walking through time. You are a vessel of cellular memory, a living archive of all that came before you. And the stories your cells carry are older than your name. Have you ever reacted to something with intensity that made no logical sense? Flinched at a sound? Wept at a song you had never heard before? Felt drawn to a culture, a landscape, a language you had never studied? These are not accidents. They are echoes, not from your brain, but from your body's deeper memory. The body does not record events with words. It It remembers through vibration, through sensation, through tension and release. Every trauma, every love, every birth, every death your ancestors lived through left an imprint, and that imprint shaped the energy field that became you. This is why you can inherit fear without ever being told to be afraid. Why you can inherit shame without a single lecture. Why some people grow up in safe homes but still feel unsafe. Because the body is not simply reacting to this life, it is responding to a larger field of memory woven through generations. And in that field, not all stories were resolved. Not all pain was processed. Not all dreams were fulfilled. Much of it was simply passed forward, quietly, unconsciously, until it reached you. You are the threshold where memory becomes awareness, the bridge where the unconscious becomes conscious. You are not meant to carry the past in silence. You are meant to bring it to light, not to relive it, but to release it. And in doing so, you begin to liberate not only yourself, but your lineage. Memory does not live only in what you recall. It lives in your gut instincts, in your posture, in your breath. It lives in how you hold yourself in conflict, in how quickly you shrink or expand, in how easily you trust or withhold. These patterns are not personality traits. They are survival codes passed down because someone, somewhere, had to survive. And now that you are safe, now that you are conscious, you can choose. You can listen not just to the stories your family told, but to the stories your body has always been whispering. There is an ancient intelligence in your cells. Your body has been here before. It has known cold, hunger, exile, betrayal, war. It has also known love, rhythm, devotion, prayer, and all of it lives within you as silent knowledge, waiting to be remembered, honored, and if necessary, rewritten. Because memory is not fixed. It is alive. It breathes with your choices. It reshapes with your presence. You are not a prisoner to the past. You are a rewriter of it. Not by denying it, but by relating to it differently. By recognizing that what your ancestors carried unconsciously, you now hold with awareness. And awareness is the beginning of transformation. Science is just beginning to scratch the surface of what mystics have always known. Epigenetics tells us that trauma can leave chemical markers on DNA, altering how genes are expressed for generations. But science cannot measure what the soul already understands. Your body is not a machine. It is a ritual space. Every movement, every emotion, every breath is a portal. And when you enter that portal, not with analysis, but with reverence, you begin to commune with the memory in your cells. You begin to feel what was never felt. You begin to allow what was never allowed. And in that sacred allowing, something shifts, not just in you, but in your lineage. When you tremble in grief, an ancestor sighs. When you speak the truth that was once dangerous to say, an ancestor stands taller. When you forgive what seemed unforgivable, an ancestor weeps in your dreams. Healing does not only move forward, it moves in all directions. The past is not behind you, it is within you, and it responds to your choices now. But this is delicate work. You cannot rush it, you cannot force it, you cannot think your way through it. You must feel it. You must listen to your body the way you would listen to a child who has been silenced too long, with tenderness, with patience, with trust. Your body remembers, and it also knows how to release. When given the chance, when met with love, the cellular memory begins to reorganize. The nervous system begins to unwind, the patterns begin to soften, and the story begins to change. This is the essence of ancestral healing, not learning all the names on a family tree, but honoring the living imprint of those names in your cells. It is saying, I may not know what you went through, but I carry your echo, and I choose to meet it with presence, not resistance. It is becoming the one in the bloodline who no longer numbs the ache, but invites it to speak. And through that sacred listening, 1,000 untold stories begin to rest. So the next time your body reacts without explanation, pause. Ask it not, what's wrong with me? But what are you remembering? Then breathe. Be still. Let the sensation come. Let the wave rise. Trust that your body knows what it's doing. Trust that it is not malfunctioning. It is awakening. Trust that in the shaking, the tears, the sudden clarity, you are rewriting memory at the cellular level. You are not weak for feeling what others could not. You are not broken for trembling where others seemed strong. You are the one who chose to remember. And remembering is how healing begins. Part 4. The pain you avoid is not just yours. There's a strange heaviness that follows you, not always loud but ever present, a sorrow that seems to wake with you and lie down beside you. Sometimes it's grief, sudden and sharp. Other times it's anxiety, vague but constant. Sometimes it's shame, unexplained and illogical, like a fog you can't name but feel. And most of the time it doesn't make sense. Your life isn't falling apart. Your childhood wasn't catastrophic. You've done the work, read the books, tried the affirmations. So why does this ache still linger? Why does this fear still return? Why does it feel like something is always just beneath the surface, waiting to pull you under? The truth is, the pain you avoid may not be yours at all, or at least, not only yours. You are the current in a much older river, and that river carries more than just your own reflection. It carries the pain of those who came before, the wounds they buried, the words they never spoke, the choices they never had. Their pain didn't vanish, it migrated. It found a place to rest in your bones, your blood, your dreams. You didn't choose it, but you inherited it. Not as punishment, but as opportunity. You are the first in the line who is conscious enough, safe enough, awake enough to feel it, to name it, to release it. Avoiding the pain doesn't make it disappear. It delays the conversation. It prolongs the pattern. And often we avoid pain not because we are weak, but because we feel alone in it. We think no one else would understand. But imagine this. What if your pain is not a personal failure but a collective call? What if the very ache you avoid is the doorway through which your entire lineage is asking to be healed? Your sadness may be the echo of a great-grandmother who was never allowed to mourn. Your fear of abandonment may be the resonance of generations separated by war, migration, exile. Your distrust of love may be the remnant of betrayal that happened long before you were born. These aren't just metaphors. These are real vibrations encoded in the nervous system, passed down like heirlooms, waiting for a safe vessel to transform them. That vessel is you. When you turn away from pain, it doesn't disappear, it descends deeper. It weaves itself into your relationships, your choices, your behaviors. It finds clever disguises: control, perfectionism, emotional numbness, overachievement, self-sabotage, and all the while your soul keeps whispering, "Feel this. You are the one who can." Not because you deserve to suffer, but because you have the consciousness to choose something different. You have the presence to pause instead of repeat. You have the awareness to witness the wound without becoming it. Avoiding pain is a learned survival skill, and it was necessary for them. For your ancestors, pain was often dangerous. Feeling it meant losing control. Expressing it meant being punished, abandoned, or silenced. So they pushed it down, sealed it shut, covered it with work, pride, obedience, or denial. But you are living in a different world now. A world where healing is possible. A world where truth is safer than it used to be. You are not them. You are the evolution of them. And in your body lives not only their pain, but their longing for freedom. To feel what they couldn't is not to dishonor them. It is to liberate them. Every tear you cry is a tear they couldn't. Every truth you speak is a sentence they never dared voice. Every boundary you draw is a reclaiming of a dignity they were forced to give away. When you sit with pain, not to wallow in it, but to listen to it, you become the first open door in a hallway of locked rooms. And through that door, light enters. Not just for you, for them too. But this work is not romantic. It will ask everything of you. It will take you into spaces that feel unfamiliar, ancient, confusing. You will cry for people you never met. You will grieve things you never lost. You will feel rage rise in your chest with no story attached. And yet, all of it is real. Because your body is not bound by time. Your soul is not limited to one lifetime. And the pain you carry is not only personal, it is ancestral, archetypal, collective. So when pain rises, don't run. Don't rush to fix it. Don't numb it or frame it as weakness. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Ask it, whose voice are you? What do you need me to remember? And then listen, not with your mind, but with your heart, your belly, your bones. Pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to invite you deeper, into remembrance, into responsibility, into release. You are not here to carry all the suffering of your ancestors. You are here to feel just enough of it to shift the pattern, to bring light where there was shadow, to bring consciousness where there was silence. You are the first whisper in a bloodline that says, "It's okay now." I will not run. I will not pass this on. I will not pretend this doesn't hurt. I will meet it, feel it, honor it, and in doing so, I will end it. This is how you break the cycle. Not with blame, not with shame, but with love, with presence, with a willingness to feel what was never allowed to be felt before. The pain you avoid is not your enemy. It is your ancestor in disguise, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be seen, waiting to rest through you. Part 5. Why the ancestors choose you. It's not a coincidence that you're the one who feels more, who senses things others overlook, who walks through life with an invisible weight pressing gently against your chest. You've always known you were different, not better but tuned to something deeper. You hear beneath the noise. You dream beyond your own life. You feel sadness in rooms filled with laughter. You question what others accept without thought. You carry a knowing that cannot be explained, and this knowing is not imagined. It is remembered. It is inherited. It is a calling. You may not remember the moment it began, but at some point in the long thread of your lineage, something shifted. A whisper moved through the bloodline and reached for you. Not because you were the strongest, the smartest, or the most spiritual, but because you were the most open. Because your soul had the capacity to hold the weight of what had never been spoken and to begin finally transforming it. The ancestors chose you, not in some mythic coronation, but in the quiet alchemy of vibration. They felt your frequency, your ability to feel, to pause, to be still in the presence of chaos, to ask the hard questions, to speak the hard truths, to live not just for yourself, but for the healing of what was left behind. You are the one in the line who has said again and again, I won't carry this blindly anymore. And that declaration, that simple refusal to repeat, is what makes you the chosen one. Not a hero, not a savior, but the healing bridge between what was and what could be. You were born into a system, of family, of culture, of memory that was wounded long before you arrived. There were patterns of abandonment, silence, rage, scarcity, shame, illness, separation. These did not begin with you, but they continued through you, and now they are being seen, through your eyes, felt through your heart, processed through your body. That is sacred work. That is why your soul was chosen, because it knew what it was capable of, even if you don't yet. It's easy to doubt this, to feel like maybe you're just too sensitive, too emotional, too slow in a fast world, too much or somehow not enough. But none of that is true. What you are is deeply attuned, deeply receptive, deeply connected to the parts of life that can't be explained in words. And while others may numb, distract, or run from the echoes of the past, you sit with them. You feel them. You breathe with them until they shift. That is not weakness. That is soul strength. That is ancestral intelligence waking up through you. The ancestors choose based on resonance, not resume. They don't need perfection. They need presence. They don't need someone who has all the answers. They need someone who is willing to ask the right questions. They don't need you to heal the entire bloodline in one lifetime. They need you to say yes, to listen, to begin, to take one step in the direction they could never walk. And every time you do, they walk with you. You are not doing this alone. Even in the moments of despair, when it feels like no one sees you, no one understands, no one is coming, you are surrounded. Not by fantasy, but by frequency. By the silent field of souls who paved the road you now stand on. They know the weight you carry, and they know the power you hold, because it comes from them, through them, beyond them. They choose you because you can hold contradiction, because you can be angry at your ancestors and still honor them, because you can love where they shut down, because you can forgive what they couldn't, because you can rest when they were forced to run. They see your struggle, yes, but they also see your capacity. They know that when you cry, you are not collapsing, you are cleansing, that when you shake, you are not breaking, you are shedding, that when you say no more, it's not a rejection, it's a redemption. You are not the first to carry the pain, but you are the first to hold it with awareness, and that makes all the difference. This work isn't about ancestry in the traditional sense. It's not about glorifying the past or romanticizing where you came from. It's about being honest, about seeing clearly, about acknowledging that the past lives in the present, not as fate, but as invitation. You are being invited to live in a new way, to respond where others reacted, to breathe where others held their breath, to rise where others collapsed. It won't always be easy, but it will always be sacred. And when you feel alone, when the work becomes heavy, remember this: you were chosen, yes, but you also chose. Before you came into this body, into this life, into this name, you knew. You saw the pain, you saw the potential, and you said yes. Not because you had to, but because your soul longed to be part of the healing. You didn't come to escape the lineage. You came to end the loop, to open a new path, to become the ancestor who passes down something different, something lighter, something true. That's who you are. Not just the child of the past, but the creator of the future, the seed of change, the voice of healing, the one who remembers. Part 6. Ritual, Intuition, and the Bridge Between Worlds. There are moments in life that seem to slow down. A stillness enters the air, the light shifts, a breeze moves without origin. A word is whispered in your mind that no one around you has spoken. You feel the presence of something ancient, watching, not as a ghost, but as a remembering. This is not imagination. This is connection. You are not just a body moving through the world. You are a bridge between worlds. And the ancestors are always near, not because they are stuck, but because you are the one who can hear. In the old ways, before the noise, before the forgetting, our ancestors lived in constant conversation with the unseen. Ritual was not a luxury. It was breath, a way of remembering what the rational mind forgets, that we are not separate, that everything is alive, that everything is listening, and that through simple acts of presence, intention, and devotion, the veil between worlds becomes thin. Ritual is not about religion, it is about relationship. It is how the soul speaks in symbol when language is not enough. You have felt this before, in the way your body leans toward candlelight, in the pull to pour a cup of tea and set it down for no one, in the tears that rise when you hear a drum beat, a chant, a silence deeper than sound. Your intuition recognizes what your mind cannot name. You are remembering the language of spirit, the way the ancestors spoke, not in words but in feeling, in rhythm, in gesture. This is the essence of ritual, embodiment of the unseen, a gesture that says, I remember, a movement that says, you are welcome, a pause that says, I am listening. You don't need to know the names of your ancestors to commune with them. You don't need to know their language, their land, their stories. Your body is the temple, your intuition is the altar. What matters is sincerity. What matters is presence. Light a candle not for performance, but as invitation. Sit in silence, not to escape, but to receive. Offer flowers, incense, breath, not because they are required, but because they remind you that something sacred is always close. Your ancestors speak through signs, through dreams, through gut feelings, through sudden memories that feel borrowed, through the warmth that floods your chest when you speak your truth, through the strange calm that comes when you finally set down what was never yours. They speak through the rhythm of ritual, because ritual is repetition with meaning. It is the soul's way of sculpting time into sacredness. And through that sacredness, the doorway opens. But we live in a world that has forgotten this, a world obsessed with productivity, with proof, with noise, a world that dismisses the unseen unless it can be monetized or measured. And yet, something deeper in you resists. You long for stillness, for connection, for mystery. That longing is not weakness, it is memory. It is the ancestral voice inside you saying, come back to the fire, come back to the soil, come back to the circle. We are waiting. You don't need elaborate ceremonies, you need presence. Pour water with intention. Speak aloud to the ones who came before you. Journal with your non-dominant hand and see who answers. Sit under the moon and listen without expectation. These are not performances, they are portals. They open you, not to fantasy, but to relationship. And through that relationship, healing begins. Because when you engage in ritual, you're not just honoring the dead, you are activating the living thread between you and them. You are telling your nervous system, we are not alone. You are reminding your cells, we are connected. You are anchoring the intangible into the real, and that act alone shifts everything. Intuition is how the soul navigates the unseen. It is not always loud, it does not argue, it simply knows. And when you trust it, when you follow the impulse to light that candle, to sing that song, to stand barefoot on the earth, you are reclaiming your role in the sacred ecosystem of being. You are no longer a stranger to your own spirit, You are no longer silencing the voice that has guided you for lifetimes. You are remembering, and in that remembrance, the bridge forms. The ancestors draw near, not to tell you what to do, but to offer their presence, their support, their blessings. They do not want worship. They want relationship. They want you to thrive where they only survived, to express where they were silenced, to create where they were confined, to live your life as a prayer, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest, because it's yours. Through ritual and intuition, you begin to hear again, you begin to feel again, and the divide between the worlds dissolves, the sacred becomes daily, the invisible becomes intimate, and your life becomes a ceremony not of grand gestures but of quiet alignment, each breath a return, each moment a choice to connect. You are not making this up, you are remembering, you are not alone, you are accompanied, you are not reaching out into darkness, you are being held in light. Let the candle burn, let the silence speak, let your hands move with meaning, let your heart open without needing proof. You are the bridge. You always have been. Part 7. Breaking the contract of silence. There is a silence that doesn't belong to you. A silence you were born into, like a room you entered before you knew how to speak. You didn't choose it, but you've always felt its presence. A quiet tension, a knowing of what not to say, a sense that certain things are better left buried. It lives in your family's glances, in the way emotion disappears behind polite smiles, in the way pain is dressed up as strength, in the way truth is replaced with tradition. This silence is not an absence of sound, it is a contract, an unspoken agreement passed down through generations. We do not speak of this, but silence does not erase what happened. It encases it, and over time the silence becomes heavier than the words ever could have been. The body begins to hold what the voice cannot release. And without meaning to, you become fluent in a language of suppression, smiling when you want to cry, accommodating when you want to scream, avoiding when you long to connect. Not because you are dishonest, but because somewhere along the ancestral line, speaking became dangerous. Perhaps your ancestors were punished for telling the truth. Perhaps they were exiled for their beliefs. Perhaps they were shamed, silenced, or forced into survival so tightly that expression became a liability. And so they made a choice. Survive, not speak. Endure, not feel. Continue, not confront. And that choice became culture. It became rhythm. It became inheritance. And now it lives in you. You feel it when your throat closes in hard conversations, when you censor yourself in moments that matter, when you shrink around your own truth. You feel it every time you stay silent, not because you want to, but because you've been trained to believe silence keeps you safe. But safety built on silence is a cage, and you, beloved, were not born to live in a cage. You were born to break the spell. To break the contract of silence is not to betray your ancestors, it is to liberate them. Because silence protected them then, but it imprisons you now. You live in a different time. You carry a different capacity. You are the first in the bloodline to realize truth can be medicine, emotion can be sacred, expression can be freedom. You do not have to repeat what they endured. You can honor their choices without becoming their echo. But to do this, you must become aware of how silence has shaped you. Not just in what you don't say, but in who you don't become. How often have you withheld your joy, your brilliance, your opinions, your needs, because something in you whispered, "It's not safe"? That whisper is not yours alone. It is ancestral memory speaking through your nervous system. And when you listen to it without judgment, when you hold it in compassion, something ancient begins to shift. You realize, this silence is not my fault, but it is my responsibility. Breaking the contract begins softly, with a breath, with a sentence you thought you'd never say. With choosing to speak, even when your voice trembles. With choosing to feel, even when your body tenses. It begins when you stop pretending, when you stop performing, when you stop holding your truth hostage out of loyalty to patterns that never served your wholeness. You were not born to continue the silence. You were born to complete it. And sometimes that means being the one who speaks first, who asks the uncomfortable questions, who tells the story no one else will, who says, "I love you," when no one else knows how, who cries in front of people who were taught that tears are weakness, who says no and means it, who says yes and receives it. This is not rebellion, this is repair. This is the soul remembering what it feels like to be free. Your ancestors are not angry with you for breaking the silence. They are relieved. They are watching you with awe. They are exhaling for the first time in generations. Because someone finally is doing what they could not. You are speaking for the women who never had a voice. You are feeling for the men who were only allowed to be strong. You are creating the space where the unsaid can be spoken and the unseen can be loved. And the beauty is, you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to scream, confess, or explain yourself to everyone. You only have to tell yourself the truth, to give yourself permission, to choose honesty over silence, even if it's just in how you speak to your own soul. From there, the rest will ripple. The contracts will dissolve, the weight will lift. And your voice will find its place, not as a weapon, but as a light. Because when one person breaks the silence, 1,000 souls begin to breathe. This is your gift. You are not here to keep the peace that silence demands. You are here to create the peace that truth allows. Part 8. Reclaiming gifts hidden by generations. There are gifts buried deep within you, gifts you did not earn but inherited. They live beneath the scars, beneath the silence, beneath the survival patterns you've spent a lifetime trying to understand. They are not always obvious. They do not arrive with grand announcements or dramatic awakenings. They come softly, often disguised as memory, as longing, as a sense of, I've done this before. Because you have, not in this lifetime perhaps, but through the bloodline, through the soul thread that binds you to those who walked before. You see, trauma is not the only thing passed down. So are gifts, so are songs, so is sacred knowledge, encoded not just in the mind but in the bones. You carry more than pain, you carry wisdom, you carry resilience. You carry the spark of medicine women who hid their herbs behind closed doors, of storytellers whose tongues were tied by war but whose tales still live in your dreams, of musicians who never learned to read notes but whose hands moved like rivers over strings, of protectors, of makers, of visionaries. These gifts did not die when your ancestors died. They slept, waiting for someone safe enough, conscious enough, ready enough to awaken them. And that someone is you. The world taught you to look outward for your worth, for your knowledge, for your identity. It told you that what you seek must be proven, certified, validated. But your deepest knowing will not come from degrees or doctrines. It comes from remembering. It comes from the quiet recognition that what you long to learn, you already know. That the things you are drawn to, spiritual practices, healing arts, intuitive gifts, are not new obsessions, but ancient callings. The moment you begin to trust those callings, the moment you stop dismissing them as coincidences, you begin to reclaim what was hidden. You may feel pulled toward things you cannot explain, languages you've never spoken but understand, tools you've never been taught to use but hold with ease, landscapes that feel like home, symbols that stir something deep and unnameable in your soul. These are not random. These are echoes, resonances, breadcrumbs left behind by the ones who came before you, hoping you would follow. And as you do, as you pick up those threads and weave them into your daily life, something miraculous begins to happen. You begin to change not just your story, but your bloodline's story. You become the living continuation of what was never meant to be lost. But this reclamation is not always glamorous. Sometimes it begins with grief. Because to reclaim your ancestral gifts, you must first face the pain of why they were lost. Colonization, war, genocide, forced assimilation, religious suppression, patriarchy, trauma. So many ancestors had to bury their gifts to survive. They were told their wisdom was sinful, that their connection to earth, to intuition, to spirit was dangerous. They were silenced, punished, erased, and yet the gifts remained, buried but not broken, dormant but not destroyed. Inside you, they still live. And it is not only your right to reclaim them, it is your responsibility. Not to carry your ancestors' grief, but to complete their arc, to finish what they began, to speak the truth they could not, to sing the song they could only hum beneath breath, to practice the medicine they were forced to abandon. You don't have to do it perfectly, you only have to do it honestly. When you light the candle, when you chant the words, when you follow the knowing in your hands, you're not performing, you're remembering. But be gentle with yourself. You may feel resistance, doubt, shame. You may hear voices, internal or external, saying, "Who do you think you are?" But that question is not a threat, it is a threshold. Who do you think you are? The answer is not found in your resume, but in your roots. You are the grandchild of mystics, of seers, of wild ones who spoke to trees and listened to stars. You are the living altar of everything they were told to forget. And these gifts are not just for you. They are meant to be lived, shared, embodied. You don't need to turn them into a brand or a business unless that is what your soul calls for. Sometimes the most sacred use of a gift is how it changes your relationships, your parenting, your art, your silence, the way you hold space, the way you tend the earth, the way you trust your gut, the way you speak with integrity, even when your voice shakes. These too are holy. As you reclaim your gifts, the ancestors rejoice, not because you're becoming something new, but because you're becoming who they always knew you were. The one who could walk both worlds, the physical and the spiritual. The one who would not be burned or banished for remembering. The one who could thrive in their power, not hide from it. You are the answered prayer of 1,000 silenced hearts. So when the knowing comes, do not turn away. When the memory returns, do not question it to death. When the song rises, let it. When your hands move without instruction, trust them. You are not making this up. You are making it real again. This is the medicine of remembrance. This is the work of a lineage healer. You are not here to borrow from your ancestors. You are here to embody them. And in doing so, you will awaken something ancient, powerful, and beautiful. Not just in yourself, but in everyone around you. Because when you reclaim your gifts, you don't just heal the past, you resurrect it. You honor it. You carry it forward in light. Part 9. When you heal, you set time free. Time is not what you were taught. It is not a straight line marching relentlessly forward. It is not a chain that drags the past behind it. Time is circular. Time is layered. Time is living. And the soul does not move through time. Time moves through the soul. This is why you can feel echoes of the past in the present moment. Why a song can break your heart in ways you cannot explain. Why the grief in your chest feels older than your memories. Because in the deeper truth of the universe, time bends. And healing, true healing, does not only move forward, it radiates outward, backward, across dimensions you cannot see, but can absolutely feel. When you heal, you are not just healing yourself. You are shifting the entire field. You are altering the vibration of the timeline itself. You are sending new signals into the web of memory that stretches far beyond your lifetime. Imagine the ripple of a stone dropped into water. That's what your healing does. It touches the past. It rearranges it, not by changing what happened, but by transforming what it means. Your grandmother's heartbreak, long buried and unspoken, finds resolution in your ability to love freely. Your grandfather's silence begins to soften when you choose to speak your truth. A great-great-aunt who died in shame stands taller in the unseen world when you choose to forgive yourself. These may seem like metaphors. They are not. Energy moves beyond form. Intention reverberates. What you resolve within you becomes a shift within the lineage. The ancestors are not bound by time as we know it. They feel your growth in real time. They witness your moments of courage, your quiet acts of reclamation, your trembling decisions to love where they only knew fear. They do not need you to be perfect. They only need you to be present. Every time you say, "This ends with me," a door opens, not just for you, for them. Because time does not limit the soul. It is the soul that transforms time. You may wonder how that's possible. How healing in the present could reach into the past. But think of this. Your body is made of memory. Your nervous system holds the impressions of generations. And when you release the trauma, the grief, the rage locked inside your cells, you're not just improving your own life. You're unclenching fists that have been held tight for centuries. You're breathing air into lungs that forgot how. You're breaking loops that have cycled through family after family. And in doing so, you are setting time free. You are giving it a new shape, a new song. This is why the work feels bigger than you, because it is. You are not only living your own life, you are fulfilling an ancient promise. You are closing open loops. You are carrying sacred energy across the threshold into a new way of being. Your joy is not selfish, it is reparative. Your boundaries are not rejection, they are ancestral evolution. Your choice to rest, to stop running, to live fully is not indulgence, it is redemption. And it goes even further. When you heal, you don't just set the past free, you also liberate the future. You change the legacy you hand down. Your children, biological or spiritual, inherit a different field, one that holds more ease, more clarity, more safety, more truth. They don't have to start where you started. They get to begin where you arrive. That is the sacred gift of ancestral healing. It bends time not only backward, but forward. It becomes a blessing that echoes through the unseen. This is not magic. It is alignment. It is what happens when the past is no longer denied and the present is no longer numbed. When you choose to be awake in a world built on forgetting, when you allow your life to become the place where the story changes. You don't need a ceremony to make this real. It happens in everyday choices. In the moment you say, "I forgive." In the moment you let yourself cry. In the moment you put your hand on your heart and whisper, "I'm here." It happens when you love yourself through the patterns. When you stop judging your pain and start listening to it. When you remember that the story running through you is bigger than your lifetime, and yet, in your lifetime, you can set it free. The soul works in spirals, not straight lines. And sometimes healing doesn't look like progress. It looks like revisiting the same pain with a deeper presence, a deeper breath, a deeper truth. That's not regression, that's evolution. That's the spiral doing its sacred work. That's you peeling back the layers of time, not to erase them, but to liberate what's been trapped beneath. And as you do this, you become a new kind of ancestor, one who does not pass on the wound, but the wisdom. One who does not repeat the cycle, but completes it. One who says, "Let it begin with me and let it end with me too." This is not burden, this is initiation. You were chosen for this, and you said yes. So breathe. Trust the spiral. Trust the ache that brings you back to the same lessons again and again. Trust the quiet that follows the storm. Trust the knowing that stirs in your bones when your mind has no answers. You are not just healing. You are reshaping time. You are becoming the moment the past has been waiting for. And in doing so, you are giving the future something beautiful to inherit. Part 10. The future remembers you. You may not realize it now, but someone in the future is already whispering your name. Not in the way history books record heroes, but in the quiet breath of a soul who will one day wonder why they feel safe to be soft. Why their heart opens easily. Why they trust their intuition. Why they were born into a lineage that doesn't ache the way it used to. That someone will never know the depth of your tears, the long nights you sat with your pain, the brave moments you said no when silence would have been easier. They will never feel the weight of the chains you broke, and still, they will be free because of you. You are not just shaped by the past, you are shaping the future. Every pattern you dissolve, every story you rewrite, every belief you shed becomes a gift you hand forward, not wrapped in paper, but in peace. Not documented in legacy, but embodied in frequency. Healing doesn't leave monuments behind. It leaves freedom, it leaves breath, it leaves presence. And presence is what the future will remember. One day, your great-grandchildren may not even know your face, but they will know what it feels like to grow up in a lineage that no longer fears its own voice. They will not tremble at intimacy. They will not inherit wars you chose to end within yourself. They will not flinch from joy. They will not forget how to pray with their feet on the earth, because you remembered, because you sat with what was unspeakable and found language for it, because you walked through fire and made it sacred. This is the true nature of legacy. It is not what you build, it is what you clear. It is not what you accumulate, it is what you release. It is the permission you give the future to begin where you leave off, with more love, more space, more truth. And the beautiful mystery is this: the future you shape is not separate from you. It already lives within you, responding to the choices you make now. The way you love, the way you rest, the way you stop running, the way you listen when the world begs you to distract. These are not just personal practices. They are time-traveling acts of devotion. You are not invisible in the future's eyes. You are the ancestor they will thank in dreams they don't understand. You are the firekeeper who held warmth through a long night they'll never have to endure. You are the one who dared to stop the momentum of pain, of forgetting, of silence. You are the first green shoot after generations of winter. You are the seed of peace, planted in soil you once thought was barren. The world may never see your work. There may be no applause, no recognition, no reward. But healing is not performance. Healing is remembrance. And the future remembers in ways the present cannot. It remembers through ease, through breath, through lives lived without the weight you carried. That is grace. That is the unseen ripple of your presence in time. So if you ever wonder whether it's worth it, this aching, this unlearning, this sacred responsibility, remember this: you are not doing it for praise. You are doing it for the ones who will never need to ask these questions, for the children who will never doubt that they are enough, for the lovers who will not mistake pain for passion, for the artists who will create not from wound, but from wonder. You are not only healing backwards, you are healing forward. You are not only releasing the past, you are inventing a future that remembers you not with words, but with wholeness. The future will not remember how hard it was. The future will remember that someone finally said yes to the soul, that someone stopped, that someone felt, that someone listened, that someone healed. That someone was you. You were never meant to carry it all. You were only meant to wake up, to feel the echo inside you and realize it's not just yours, to stand in the middle of the ache and choose not to turn away, to say yes to becoming the mirror where the past is seen and the future begins. You didn't come to this world to fix everything. You came to remember who you are. And in that remembrance, everything changes. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about peeling back the layers that never belonged to you. The shame, the silence, the guilt, the weight of generations of forgetting. You are not broken, you are blooming. You are not failing. You are fulfilling a promise made long before you were born, a promise to become the one who returns to truth no matter how many lifetimes it takes. And now, the path is open. You've walked through memory, through silence, through grief, through light. You've heard the whispers, you've felt the fire, you've touched the pulse of your ancestors in your own breath. They are with you, not as burdens, but as blessings. They rise behind you not to push, but to walk beside. You were never alone in this, you never will be. So what now? Now you live with presence. Now you speak the words that once were swallowed. Now you listen deeper, love truer, rest softer. Now you choose a new way, not because it's easy, but because it's honest, because it's sacred, because it's yours. This is what it means to awaken. This is what it means to heal, not only for yourself, but for the hundreds who walk with you, and the hundreds yet to come. You are the prayer they didn't know they could pray. You are the answer that echoes in both directions. You are the turning point. You are the bridge. And this is just the beginning. If this video stirred something ancient within you, if it helped you remember what your soul has always known, then you are not alone. Like, subscribe, and share this message with those who are ready to break the silence, reclaim their gifts, and become the bridge between what was and what's possible. The healing is already happening. Let's walk it home, together.